What is up, Flockers? That is my fellow lockers and aspiring lockers. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to do a 2-point, 3-point, and 4-point rotation. So make sure to stick around to see all of those. Today I'm going to go ahead and start with a 4-point rotation just because that is the one that I use the most, and I can go ahead and do it on my head since that is what I try to do across my entire head, even though that does not always work out. And then for 2- and 3-point rotation, I will be using jury here to demonstrate those. If you have seen my previous videos where I talk about retightening my hair, then you know that I am not stuck on a rotation in the sense of everything has to be a 4-point rotation. Although that is what I aim for, I am more interested in making sure that I do the rotation that best fit that particular lock. And what I mean by that is just, as everyone knows, or we'll say most people, because I don't want to assume that everybody knows, but your hair grows at different rates in different places. With that being said, certain locks on my head can do a 4-point rotation, and I can do 2 4-point rotations with no problem after 5 or 6 weeks of letting my hair grow out. There are other locks that I can only do a 3-point rotation one time with, even after 6 weeks. It doesn't matter whether I retie after 4 weeks or 6 weeks, it's not gonna matter. I can only get a 3-point rotation in. So I think scalp and hair health is so much more important than the number of rotations that you get in. So that is first and foremost that I want to put out there, to make sure that you are taking care of the health of your hair and the health of your scalp, and not trying to be so hell-bent on making sure that you get a certain amount of rotations in so that you can say that you're only 4-point rotation or only 3-point rotation. You need to do the amount of rotations that you can do without harming your hair or your scalp. So all of this is already done. The reason I chose 4-point rotation is for the fact that the 4-point rotation is the most condensed rotation, and it allows for the least amount of swelling. Although no matter what you do, you're still going to have locks that swell, but it just creates a more compact, tighter lock than the 2- and the 3-point rotation. So since I'm on a microloc journey, but I did not do my microlocs as small as they possibly could be, because I could have gone a lot smaller, even though these are pretty small. I would say that in general, it would take probably about 5 to 6 of my microlocs to equal what one of my traditional locks used to be on my traditional lock journey. With all that said, I decided to do 4-point rotation so that way I could have a more cylindrical, although it's still bumpy, but a more cylindrical, tighter lock with this set of locks. So I'll just go ahead and show you my 4-point rotation. I'll probably get confused if I try to say the directions, but I'm going east to west, and then I'm going south to north, then going west to east. And as I'm doing this, I make sure to pull the needle down to the end of where the new growth is every time before pulling it through. And then for my last rotation, for the 4-point rotation, I will go from north to south. Again, you want to end in the direction that you want your lock to lay, but there have been plenty of times where I wanted my lock, look, it's still doing the most, but where I wanted my lock to lay down this way, for example, but I couldn't get another rotation in without it being too close to the scalp. And so maybe it was angling that way or angling this way. And again, to me, it's more about the health of your scalp and your hair, and not tugging on your hair too much, than to try to get the perfect amount of rotations in. It's just not that deep to me. I'd rather my locks be healthy than to look pretty but be breaking off and getting thinner over time. So I'll do one more 4-point rotation. Again, this one has less new growth, but we'll see. So again, when I stick it in, I pull it down as far as I can before pulling it through. East to west. Then I go south to north. And I'm sorry if I'm blocking it with my finger. It's because I use my finger to feel as I'm putting it through to make sure that I'm not combining any locks. Then west to east. And you know what? Here's a prime example. I just ended going that way. I would have ideally wanted to end going down, but look, it's already tight to the scalp. If I do another rotation, I'm gonna be pulling out hair follicles and I'm going to be hurting myself. And honestly, it's really not going that well. Okay, it's a little exaggerated, but by the time I put my bonnet on and sleep on it tonight, it'll be laying down just like the rest of them. So it's not a big deal. All right, so there's the 4-point rotation. Again, for a more cylindrical look, as you can see, the lock is still going to be bumpy. There's no getting around that with interlocking, but it just allows for less puffing, and there's more of a uniform look when it's the 4-point rotation. So that's what you have. All right, so now for the 2 and 3-point rotation, like I said, I'm going to use Jury to help me with that, since I try to achieve 4-point on my hair when I can. So Jury, you're up. All right, so here for Jury, I have created 2 Braidlocs. As I showed in a previous video where I demonstrated how to start different types of microlocs and different methods, I showed that you can interlock any of the different types of starter methods, regardless of whether it's a braid, whether it's 2-strand twist, if it's a comb coil, if it's an instant lock that was crocheted using the crochet method, or whether it was an interlock that was interlocked from root to tip, or tip to root, however you say that. So I say that to say that I'm using Braidlocs, but this obviously can apply to any type of lock, not just a braid lock. And I have Braidlocs, so there's that. All right, so let's get in a little bit closer so that we can see what is going on. Okay, so let's do 2-point rotation first. We will do it on this one. 2-point rotation is just that. You do 2 rotations, 2 points of entry. And so I guess honestly you can choose which 2 directions you want to go, but you want to make sure that as your hair grows out and you continue to use the 2-point rotation, that you are consistent in the directions that you choose to go. So we will go east to west and pull through, and then we'll go north to south, because if this was my lock, I would want it to end going down so that way it can lay down flat. Or depending on what part of your head it's on, you might want it to lay a different direction, or maybe you want it to lay back. So just keep that in mind as you're doing it. All right, so again, we're going east to west and pulling down the needle all the way down to the end where the new growth stops and the lock starts. Pull it through, and again, north to south, and you just repeat that as you go. With the 2-point rotation, this one is going to obviously be the quickest to do because you're doing less rotations. It is also going to allow for the most amount of swelling, which you will not be able to see on Journey's hair, obviously, because you're not going to be able to see the progression of her lock journey. But with someone whose hair is growing out of their scalp and it is alive and well, this, even though it looks tight right here, again, this will allow your lock to swell the most out of the 2 different types. But each different type gives you a different look. Whether it's a rope look or a braid look, they all look similar, but they are different. And depending on how large your lock is or small, it may or may not be visible as to whether it's a rope look or a braid look or whatnot. All right, since I have Braidlocs, I feel like it kind of seamlessly goes from, dang, I'm like super close. I'll have to show y'all later. But I feel like it goes seamlessly Journey, move out the way. I feel like the line of demarcation, come on now. The line of demarcation goes pretty seamlessly for Braidlocs with the 4-point rotation. Now granted, these in the front are not very fuzzy yet, but as they get fuzzier, I feel like it's very hard to differentiate between the pattern of the 4-point rotation and then the braid itself, just because there's a similarity in the way a braid looks in a 4-point rotation. So if you want your line of demarcation to be less noticeable, then maybe you need to also take that into account when you're trying to decide which starter method that you're going to use and which rotation method that you're going to use. If you're going to a loctician, then they will help make all those decisions for you. Possibly with you, possibly for you. I guess it depends on the loctician and the goal. All right, so with this one, we're going to do the 3-point rotation. Let's see. All right, we will start south to north. North, south. And I guess what's most important as you're doing this is you want to make sure that you're not going through the same hole. Regardless of which direction or which rotation you use, you never want to go through the exact same hole multiple times because that can cause a potential hole in your lock. So whether you're doing it by feel or you have a mirror or you have someone doing it for you, a friend or a loctician, just make sure that you are not going through this same point of entry multiple times in a row. All right, east to south, or east to west. And then the last one, north to south. And if this was a real person, I would not do this last rotation because it's a little tight. But some people be pulling their scalp and pulling their life. All right. I don't know how well this will come off on camera, but I can definitely see it. So there is a definite difference in this pattern. Let me see. I'm trying to find the best way to show you. I don't know if you can really see it really well, but here's your 2-point rotation. And here's your 3-point rotation. There's definitely a difference in the overall look of a 2-point and a 3-point. Again, very similar. This one has more of a, it almost looks like it's a spiral going down. And as it fuzzes up and gets frizzy, I'm sure all of that starts to fade and you can't tell once they're super mature. But when they've just been redone or they're not mature, you can see the pattern. So this one is a 2 pattern. Again, it's kind of got like this spiral going down. This one, the 3-point rotation, I don't even know how to describe it. Drop down in the comments if you can see a difference and you can tell what this one's doing. It's just, it's a tighter look. It's less spiral, but it's still there. And then this one, although I didn't just do this one now, but I did use the 4-point rotation on these that I did in the last video in the back. And you can just look and see it's more compact. It's just very tight. It goes from there to there. And as you can see, it just, to me, it seamlessly goes from the interlocked portion of the 4-point rotation into the braid. It's really hard to tell the line of demarcation because the pattern looks similar. And then you've got my 4-point rotation that you can see. Again, the line of demarcation is not that noticeable when you're going from a 4-point into a braid. These in the front are tighter, so it's a lot more noticeable. But if I were to be able to pull one from the back to show you, which I can't because I can't see, but ones that have matured more, the line of demarcation just, yeah. All of this is interlock, and then the braid starts right about here. So I don't know. Can you see a huge difference between the interlock portion and the braid portion on the ones that are more mature? I don't know. Anywho, we are super close. Oh, wrong way. All right. So I am going to go ahead and finish the rest of my head off camera. Which type rotation do you think would be best for you? Let me know in the comments. If you've already started your lock journey and you are a DIYer doing it yourself, or you go to a loctician or a friend or a family member who does your locks for you, let me know what rotation you're using. Are you on 4-point rotation, a 3-point rotation, or a 2-point rotation? And what do you like about the rotation that you do? Have you ever switched from one to another? Are you happy with the rotation that you're using? Would you want to switch to a different one at some point? I love the 4-point for myself. I think it's done wonders for my locks, and I plan to continue to use the 4-point rotation. So I'm just interested to know what your rotation is. So if you are interested in seeing my other interlocking video, then you can check that out right now and head over there. I'll see you there.